And I think recruiting at every level, if you can't recruit, you can't win. You have to learn how to recruit.
I will not go below 30 unless the player's an absolute stud as far as work ethic.
We'll congratulate each other and chug some beers if somebody wins a national championship.
If they did, don't you think I'd have 2 championships by now? I might have 3.
Now, I know Cash uses those booster gifts. He's always promising cash and women, right?
I've only been caught twice. That's it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of This, That, and the Other. I'm your host, Majique, and it's been about a month or longer since the last show, and I apologize for that. That was my doing. We had family vacation come up. My daughter graduated from OBU. Go Washita Tigers. So we took her on a graduation trip, and here we are. We're back home. Everybody's safe, had a good time, rested and relaxed, and ready to get back into things. Of course, while I was gone, had minimal internet and minimal activity. So some of my teams suffered a bit more. Some of my recruiting suffered a bit more. So that's going to be my excuse for any of the shortcomings with these teams for at least the next month or so. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. No guest planned for tonight. However, if somebody pops on, of course, we'll bring them on live and chat about anything they wish to chat about. But first and foremost, near and dear to my heart, being a 20-year Air Force veteran, is let's all remember what this coming weekend is about. You know, it's easy to say, yeah, it's about the fallen military members in the past that have given us the freedom that we enjoy today. And it's easy to say, you know, they sacrificed their life. And those are words. But when you really stop and think about the impact that they had on this nation and the things that they did in order to secure our freedoms and allow us to enjoy the life that we have. You know, COVID aside, I'm talking in general terms, we really owe all of our fallen veterans a debt of gratitude. And in doing so, let's reach out. If you have military members in your family that are no longer with us, let's reach out to those spouses, those survivors, those children, those nieces and nephews, and tell them how thankful that you are for the sacrifice that their loved one made for you and everyone else. And, you know, you can't express it enough of the fact that life is a sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice to give up one's life for the love of country, doing what they want to do. So the survivors, those that are left behind, definitely reach out to them and let them know just how much you appreciate what you have today, all in thanks in part to what their loved ones sacrificed. Okay, having said that, let's go ahead and get into the smoking hot topic on the forums. And that's actually the November-December patch that Adam talked about briefly. Primarily, it surrounds the elites and how to go about securing an elite job as well as maintaining it, more importantly. You know, there's something to be said for the guys who just kind of roost at the elite status or an elite school, and they're continually going to the top level bowl games. They're continually winning conference championships. You know, those are the Joe Paternos, if you will, the Nick Sabans, the longevity holders, because they're getting the job done. They're actually doing what they're paid to do in real life. And similarly so for here at GD, you know, those coaches are doing what that particular school, that elite, expects, and that is wins, and that is conference championship, and that is bowl victory. So to those coaches, great, you're doing what you need to do. However, the patch is primarily going to impact those coaches who seem to be able to win the games they're supposed to win, lose the games they're supposed to lose, but unfortunately lose some in the bowl games or in the conference championships. So they're not winning the bowl games. They're not winning the conference championships. And those elite schools expect more from their coaches. So those jobs that have been secured in the past, from what Adam posted, are now going to be in jeopardy a little more so than what's been in the past. And personally, I know we all have, a million different opinions on how it should be implemented, what should be implemented, how it should impact different teams, when it should impact different teams. So, but this is just my opinion. I think that the overall point of it is to get more movement within GD at the elite level, get more opportunities for other coaches to try their hand at coaching a elite school, and to make those who are at an elite school work instead of just riding the old biscuit and gravy train. You can't just mail it in. You're going to have to work for it. So hopefully that is actually what comes of that. And it'll energize, in my opinion, it'll energize the ranks as far as having something realistically to strive for. Those coaches that are mediocre with an elite don't necessarily get to have a stranglehold on that school much longer. So right, wrong, or indifferent, that's my take on it. Now, how it actually gets implemented in November, December is yet to be seen. Adam did mention or allude to the fact that there will be tweaks, and we expect that there will be tweaks. This is a course adjustment, if you will, not COURSE, but COARSE. And now we're going to fine tune it once we've made that course adjustment. So I'm anxious to see just exactly how it shakes out and how it works. Hopefully it will work out to the liking of the majority of GD players. I mean, if the majority don't like it, what's the point in it, really? So fingers crossed. But more importantly, let's give him support and give him critical information and good critiques on how things are going after it's been implemented. And we've had a chance to run it a couple coaching changing cycles. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of people who have cemented opinions, and you're not going to sway those people. And then there's others who are new to the game primarily, and they really don't know what's going on. But hopefully by then, those that are playing now will have a better idea and will be able to shed or share some of their information and opinion to allow Adam and Chris and whoever else he gets on staff to make the changes to make this a better game. The elites has always been a topic of discussion and heated debates because first and foremost, it's the creme de la creme. There's, I think Adam mentioned 15 in his post, but there's 14 elites and they're static. They don't change. So they're the same in each world. And that's not realistic. So changing those to a dynamic system where in one world you may have a Colorado State that's an elite because of their history and a Penn State that, can't get a recruit to commit to them for anything because of their history, which, they win one game and 2 seasons, that's kind of result you're going to have. That in of itself will, I think, make GD a little more interesting. It'll also gear people to certain worlds, I think, and put a little bit of a difference between the 11 worlds as they exist today in regards to what schools to target, what recruiting ground to target. I know some of us do that. Some of us prefer particular geographical areas. And I think in the long run, making the elites dynamic, and even if it's not 14, nothing is in cement that it has to be 14 schools. Could it be 20? Possibly. Could it drop down to 8 or 9? Possibly. It all depends on how those schools perform and how the results shake out among those upper level schools. So a lot's to be seen, and I hope that people are patient enough to give the staff an opportunity to make the adjustment, to make the game better once it's released in November, December. So we're talking 6-7 months from now, if not more. And, quite honestly, it's going to take probably 2 or 3 months once it's implemented to really get an appreciation for the changes, to understand exactly what is happening and what's required. And that's the information, that's the data that will be collected to help fine tune it to the player's benefit, to our benefit. So again, patience is all I can suggest for everybody. And hopefully Chris and Adam have got something great in the works for us. I'm anxious to see it. I'm anxious to see if they have some additional little updates along the way between now and then. They've been doing them periodically, some with great results, some with great reception, others not so much. But again, it's all part of the trial and error effort. And yeah, we can be the quality control. I mean, this is essentially our game. And where else can you actually talk to the developers or the coders and have your input heard? You know, you don't do that with Madden. You don't do that with the NCAA football. You don't have that luxury to actually talk to the people behind the scenes. So this is very unique, and it's something that we should take advantage of in a positive manner. Let's see, what else did I have on the plate? Bear with me just a second. Let's see. Trying to figure out where that post went. Oh, the one on how the engine computes playing time. Man, that one has been a pickle for as long as I can remember. There is no set in stone identified percentage of when a player feels he is starting. And I said it that way because it's been my experience over the years that you can have a player, and I think I've mentioned this in some previous shows, you can have a player who is promised as a freshman, let's just use that, freshman, 35% playing time. And you look at his first 3 games, and in the first game, he gets credit for a start at 35%. The next game, he may get credit for a start, and it's 34%. The next game, he may get credit for a start, and it's 34%. So, generally speaking, a start is a start when a player plays a minimum of 35%. Now, I just said that there are times when a player gets credit for a start when he's played 34%. And a discussion I had with the developers way back when, many human years ago, it was pointed out that it shows a percentage without a decimal. So what you may see as 34% is actually 34.6. For some reason, it doesn't round up. But when it comes to calculating the playing time, it rounds up. It just doesn't round up as an indicated percentage on the game log for a particular player. It doesn't factor in the decimal. It just takes the whole number. So again, it may show 34, 34, 35, and he gets 3 start credits when the minimum start is 35. Well, again, that is because he actually played 34.6 or 34.7% of the plays, and the computer calculated it up to 35, which is the minimum. It just doesn't show that on the game log. I know that can be confusing, but that's the reality of it. The other one is, does a player have to play 35% each game minimum in order to get that start or to get that promise of playing 35%? And that varies. And here's why it varies. The player's scouting report, when you recruit them, there's nuggets of information in there, such as he's a team player, or he doesn't mind sacrificing himself for the better of the team. Verbiage like that indicates that the player is not going to be a stickler for his promises. For instance, if you promise him 34% playing time and he's getting 33 or 32, 34, and you promise that 35, he's not going to gripe. More than likely, he won't gripe. However, on the flip side, you get that scouting report where the guy's talking about how it's all about him and he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and your assistant coach says, yeah, he's not a team player at all. He better get at least 35 or better every game, or he's going to have issues. And that's based on my experience and when I've tracked that type of promises as far as which players tend to gripe and which ones don't. So when you encounter that, it's not a computer glitch, it's not a programming error, it's actually the personality of that particular player. So try that out, take a look at it, and see if you don't come up with the same results. And if you come up with something different, let me know. But that was one of the questions on the forum. And unfortunately, it's a little more involved in explaining it than I can do justice in typing a response. So I think that was Armchair that had that question. Yeah. So he had the question, and if you're watching this, Armchair, hopefully I answered that for you. If not, holler at me on the site mail, and I'll try to present it a little more clearly, I guess. I don't know. However that works. Anyway, folks, I've invited Adam to be on. Didn't get a response, so he may be unavailable for the time being. If he does pop on, I'll definitely get him on right away to get him to discuss some things. But in the meantime, let's look at something I was asked about to show. I've shown it before, but I was asked to show it again. And that is, how do players improve what areas? Where do you need to focus your concentration on your practice in order to improve particular core or particular aspect of a player? And I'll put this up there and let you guys look at it for a couple minute or so, and then I'll discuss it. Okay, what we see here is the core on the left. The practice on the left and the core that it improves on the right. So the items you practice are on the left, and the items that it improves is on the right, or the items are on the right. So if you notice, all but I think 3 of them improve technique. So if you're practicing blocking, tackling, pass routes, your hands, kicking, punting, studying film, passing, all of those improve technique, which stands to reason. The more you do it under the correct supervision and the proper coaching, theoretically, your technique should improve as you refine your muscle memory, as you refine your ability to do a particular aspect of the practice. The technique should improve. So with each of those, that improves your technique. Now, if you look at the agility, the strength, and the conditioning, those 3 do not impact technique, because there's really nothing technical about those 3 items. You know, conditioning is essentially how long do you last in a game. So, of course, it would improve your durability. As far as your strength goes, that's just, a brute core. Strength really has no technique to it. It actually just improves how you handle anything that requires control and strength. And agility, on the other hand, that's your running back, that's your wide receiver, being able to make the moves and get elusive. But it's also your defensive linemen, your linebackers, your DBs. You know, if they have quite a bit of agility, that means more than likely they're going to have a pretty good base under them, some solid footing, nice form. But as far as technique goes, there's really nothing technique for ability. But I was asked by two different people to put this up and go over it one more time. So hopefully that answered that. And let's see. We do have a guest that popped on. I've never seen this guy before, so I don't know who it is, but I'll bring him on anyway. Who is that guy? Daryl, how are you, buddy? How you been? Well, got to unmute you first here. Let's see.
There we go. How about that?
Yeah. How you been, buddy?
Oh, hanging in there.
You winning championships? I know you kicked my ass.
No, I am not. Not at all. I haven't won any in a little while. I'm in a drought.
You know, I at the onset of this show, I laid out my excuse already. You know, I was on vacation. I didn't get to recruit well. I didn't have full computer access. I didn't have internet. So, you know, my teams are going to suffer. So I laid my whining and excuses out right from the bat.
Yep. No, I just flat out got beat.
You know, there are certain conferences, or I should say certain worlds, where folks are continually dominating at a particular level. And you look back and they've got 8, 9, 10, 12 conference championships and, you know, just as many national championships. And I would just like to win more than, you know, 2 in a row, just once.
I've done it a couple times, but I've not been as consistent as well. I like the one I was just thought I had a outside chance at was going at Speakeasy 232.
Yeah.
Well, in our and which and I didn't think I was hoping, but then, you know, like I said, I seen it at halftime. We were tied 21-21. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, second half proved to be, you know, he stepped out but it closed the gap between what I lost. Well, I think I've lost to him the last 2 or 3 years. And then Ty Webb, who's usually on here, he ended up playing him for the championship, and he played him pretty good too. So I was actually going to drop that team this year, but then I got a good quarterback coming back, so I think this might be my last season there. I'll try him out and see if he's got the gusto to get it done. But yeah, I mean, that's what I say. It makes you step back and kind of, you know, rethink things of how, because Speakeasy hasn't been there. I mean, he's won the last, I don't know, 8, 10 championships in a row. But I mean, as far as, you know, being in the game, I don't think he's been around. I know he hasn't been around as long as I have and everything, but he's definitely stumbled on something that works. And so it just kind of makes, you know, some of the veterans like me just kind of step back and say, okay, you know, what is it I'm missing that, you know, allows him. Of course, I don't know how much time he puts into it or, you know, what all he's, you know, does, but he's definitely got something down pat. Or
is that a new ID for an old veteran?
You never know. Yep.
I'm not saying
you always wonder. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I say. I mean, it's hard telling, and it doesn't matter one way to another. But I mean, he didn't start out winning championships, but boy, he's there now. So
exactly.
You know.
I mean, they're his. You know, he's not like me following a coach or two who's done great things and got a national championship, and I take over his team and just kind of his seniors float me through and I get the credit, but I didn't do any of the real work, you know.
Yeah.
I've had that happen once or twice, but I've got to learn, and that's one of my biggest problems. I have to learn to stay with the team long enough to put my plan into action and to get my players to fit my program. I'm notorious, you know, staying at a place 3 or 4 years and moving on for whatever reason. I don't know if it's I just get bored or somebody moves the right carrot in front of my nose, but it's happened too many times. I've got St. Joseph in 2 worlds and Valdosta in 2 worlds. And it's all I can do to keep from moving up to D1 AA. I just keep, banging myself in the head going, no, you need to stay, just look at what you got, look at what's coming back, reap the benefits of your labor. And even in Wilkinson, I was asked to move into the Big Sky Conference to join all those guys with Freeman and all the, Escatrell and all those guys. And I said, I want to, just from a camaraderie aspect, just from the competition, just from the fun. But at the same time, here I am, 3rd year in a program, and it's just now starting to gel, and I'm going to walk away from it and get nothing from it. So that's been my biggest headache, is stick to it and stay put.
I usually don't have that problem. I'll go there with the intent of only staying a couple seasons, and then then after I look, I'm like, I've been in it for 10 or 12 seasons. I'm like, what the heck's happened here? Well, that's the way with Kingsville. I was quitting that whole world. I was up at what world is that? That's Wilkinson. I was at Arizona State, and I played for the national championship, lost that to Ebel 331. I played a season or 2 after that, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. And so I quit. And then for whatever reason, I was bored one day or, whatever. And I started looking, and I was like, and Kingsville was open at Division II. I'm like, I haven't played Division II in forever. I don't even really know if I remember, what you do there or whatever. So I thought, well, I'll just pick up that team and go from there. And then, here I am. Like I said, I've been at it 10 or 12 seasons now or something like that. And the last couple seasons, I'm like, I'm going to quit. And then, it just gets you far enough. You do well enough to say, one more season, I might get him, because, that's what I say, the last, I don't know how many seasons after, I won 2 championships at first when I first took it over. I didn't win the first season I was there. I won the next 2 after that. And then Speakeasy came along, and, and he's just been routing everybody since then. But, so, that's what I say. I mean, him, and then, like I said, Ty Webb's come along, that Escatrell, I think his name's Scott. Sean. I get it wrong, I'm sorry. And he came along, and he did pretty well, and then he moved up. And so I seen them asking people to go to the Big Sky, and I'd even thought about jumping over there because I was in the MEAC whenever everybody was in the Big Sky. But it's one of those things where I'm in the Big Sky in Heisman, and it could get a little crazy when recruiting out there, especially if you if you got a lot of Pac-10 teams there, Pac-12, whatever the hell it is now. But I mean, that's my whole thing is I don't mind playing tough competition, but man, recruiting's hard for me to an extent with work and everything like that. So I get when I can, and so if there's a lot of battling and stuff like that, it's tougher for me because I don't have the time to get in it like every 3 hours like everybody else does. I try best I can, but if it doesn't happen, then sometimes you're screwed. But
but D2 is one of those golden nuggets, if you will. If you're a new coach to the game and you're looking to snag your favorite D1A school, let's say you want to go to Wisconsin, and you really probably don't have a good shot of getting that school if you try to skyrocket to D1A. And here's my thought pattern on this. First and foremost, when you've gotten that D3 team, hopefully you've gotten a good enough team that you can land a decent D2 team the next year. And if you can land a good D2 team, stay there for 2 or 3 years, build you up a really good resume, because right now the D2 worlds are pretty easy to recruit in just because of all the undecideds. So even if you don't have great vision at your particular D2 school, you can still grab a couple of those recruits that you determine have a good work ethic and have high potential or better, And in 3 years or so, those guys will show out for you and they'll do you justice. And after that, you've got your wins well into double digits, and you've established yourself as a solid coach. And now those D1A schools that are prime real estate, like some of your Bethune-Cookman at Florida, if you hit it right where there's not a whole lot of live human coaches that, let's say Central Florida or South Florida, of course, you're going to have your Miami and your Florida State still there. But if you can find that those other two schools don't have humans, you've got a pretty good shot of picking up some really good leftovers from those elites that are in that area. And, a year or two there, and lo and behold, you're automatically qualified for a good D1A school. And if you win just enough and grab yourself a couple conference championships at D1AA, you'd be surprised what you qualify for at D1A. And it's easier to get the school you want than if you try to skyrocket and show up at D1AA with a 500 winning percentage and, you're one or two conference championships. That's not going to get you what you want. So D2 right now is the place where you can, powder puff your resume and stack it a little bit so it looks even better for the next level schools. And it is a stair step, essentially. You've got to work your way up and do it wisely.
Yeah, I've always said D2 is probably the easiest recruiting there is. I mean, that's the reason I've stayed there so long, is it's one of the teams where it's easy for me to recruit there because, I mean, there's like I said, there's just not as much competition. There's a lot more undecideds you can go after, and it just makes it a lot easier. Like 1AA right now with a lot. See, and I don't know if the way they do recruiting has to do with the amount of humans in the world, if that changes anything. But it seems like, to me anyway, as the number of coaches has went down, then the amount of undecideds has kind of went with it. And it's like, from where I used to have an idea of where I could start recruiting at 1AA and not get jumped on too bad by 1A schools. I kind of knew what level I could get to. Every once in a while you cross that line because you're always pushing it a little bit. But it seems like anymore, I've got like elites coming after players that I'm like, any other time I probably would have been able to sign them. But it's now, it's scared me to where I don't even want to recruit the first round because you're basically wasting your money.
Yeah, you don't know what
somebody you thought you had a chance at before, and then next thing you know, I mean, all the 1As are all over them, fighting over them, and you're thinking you had a chance at it, and you're like, yeah. So like I said, I don't know if that coincides with the amount of human coaches that were in there. So I definitely see them change in that way. So.
Yeah, it does. The way it's set up, you've got, for instance, at D2, you may have 2,500 recruits at D2 for any given recruiting season. And if you've got all but, let's say there's two human coaches in that particular world at D2, then that means all the other schools are Sims. The other schools, the Sim schools, do not target recruits and stop at their scholarship number. They target more than the number of scholarships they have. So let's say that a particular Sim has, 15 scholarships. They may target 25 recruits. And that's why you see so many recruits with 3 Sim schools on them. What happens is, when you've only got a few human coaches, those Sims, there are more Sims, which means there are more targets out there being ate up by those Sims. And the inverse would be, if you had all human coaches in the world and only 2 Sim schools, that first recruiting cycle, there would only be, 20 or 30 recruits that have a Sim on them.
Yeah.
The rest of them would be undecided until that first cycle. That's when the humans go in and start snagging stuff and using their particular promised playing time and whatever else to get the interest of those recruits. So I don't know what the cutoff is exactly for the Sims, but I do know that that does make an impact.
Well, I was just got done recruiting for Texas A&M, and shoot, like for a kicker, I bet you when you do a search for 1A kickers, I don't think there was 25 kickers available, and I'm like, well, how in the hell is that? You got 119 teams. If even half of them needed a kicker, you'd be screwed. You'd have to be fighting over a kicker or something, and I'm like, it just seemed like it was pretty low number for the amount of teams that were, out there. It's just, I don't, like I said, I don't know how they come across it, but I did a search for a 1A kicker, and I'm like, and I even had to ask because I'd never come across it. I had to ask some guys. I'm like going, I know if a player, if you're in your 1AA and you're looking in your 1AA vision, you can only sign those. But if you're at 1A and the kicker doesn't show up in your 1A vision, but if you knock it down to 1AA, can you sign him a 1AA? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I would think you could, but I was like, absolutely. I don't want to waste money sitting here, trying to put money in this guy and him not sign with me just because I'd never asked. Of course, I don't play 1A that much, so that's why I wasn't for sure exactly how it worked up there. But so I had to ask them. I'm like, can I sign a 1AA kicker? Because I'm like, I'm either going to have to spend a lot of money because he's far away and has Sims on him, or basically just go find a 1AA kicker that I can sign for cheap and just use my money elsewhere. So, but I wasn't sure if you could do that or not, so I had to find out myself.
As a 1A school, you can sign a D3 player. As a 1A school, you can sign anybody that you see given the right amount of money, if you will, and the right amount of zero competition. And of course, a D1 school is more attractive to a player than D1 AA. So if you've got a prime example would be you and I are battling at D2 over a stud quarterback who's got, he tops out on his quarterback core rating overall at like a 45 or something, which is pitifully, woefully suckage material at D1A. But you get a Texas A&M offering the kid a scholarship. All it would take is probably that scholarship, a coaching visit, and maybe a scout visit, or a campus visit, and the guy is green to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Why would he want to play for Valdosta or Texas A&M Kingsville if he can play for the real Texas A&M?
Yeah.
So,
like I said, I wasn't for sure, but I thought I had to check that out. But
yeah, I actually at D1 Virginia Tech signed a D3 player from my real world high school one time just to see. And he was on I can't remember, it was one or two schools. I think it was a sim and two humans. And I offered the guy a sophomore, start and the assistant coach scout. I think I offered him a campus visit that he took and the scholarship, and that was it. He was green and he signed. And who knows how much money the other guys have put into it. Not much, since there was still a sim on him, but yeah, so I did that one time just as an experiment to satisfy my own curiosity. He sucked. He didn't play much. But by golly, I had a high school player on my team that I went to high school.
I've got a few I've looked at. Well, one of them is on my team now, and he's actually a stud. And he was a stud in school too. So,
and of course, I've come across those players with. About a year ago, I actually recruited a player named George Floyd, and the staff went in and changed his name due to the sensitive nature of that whole situation. So right, wrong, or indifferent, that was their choice, and they did it for the good of the community. But I've recruited, Oh my gosh, I've recruited players just because of the name. Sometimes when I've had, extra money or extra positions just to be funny, and there's been a couple of good ones, and
somebody's got one in the forums right now if they were talking about name changes and some of the best ones and all that. But that's why I didn't know how many, if there was a limit they would allow or whatever. And I thought that was just basically, if you had two of them the same name, they would change it or something like that.
Yeah,
because
that's
otherwise it kind of screws up the whole play-by-play and stuff. It can have the wrong play-by-play stuff. So I knew they changed it for that, but I didn't know if they changed it for any other reason. But
it's one of those times where I brain farted and I recruited like 2 David Jones wide receivers at the same time and thought I was recruiting one and I was recruiting 2, and years and years ago it was ugly. But when I got on my roster, hey, change one to Dave Jones, Oh wait, no, he's got the first name initial. They're both playing the same position. Oh, excuse me. Change it to Paul Jones or something.
Yeah.
David Smith, anything other than having 2 David Joneses on the team in the same position, the same year. So and they'll do it like that. And there's been times where I've had players that weren't in the same position. They were a tight end and a wide receiver with the same name. And it's just, confusing, or the way I do my data dump, there needed to be some difference there, and they've gone in and changed it. So.
Yeah, even like I know some people were, concerned with it a while back about, because if they had the same name and everything, and like you in the game analyzer or something of that nature, or play-by-play, like I said, and it would say, covered by, the defensive lineman. Well, the defensive lineman wasn't actually covering a receiver. It was there was a linebacker had the same name, and so that's why they usually will change it, because it does, people start thinking that there's something wonky going on, that you can pull a defensive lineman back into coverage or something else. And if you can do that, I don't know how. If there's an exploit, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And teach me. Please teach me. Yeah, those type of things happen from time to time. And of course, I mean, within reason. I don't know that they would allow just any old name. I know I've always tried to be, reasonable with it and realistic. I mean, I'm not even going to put forth a name that I would use. Take a stick at.
I'm like you. I'd probably just change it to somebody I played, in high school or something like that.
Yeah, you can be like Jay and Ray.
Yeah. Start Ray's kids. And beats him with them.
Yeah, you gotta love those guys. I miss Ray being on the show. He's always cracking me up one way or another. And we gotta get Jay on one of these days. He was on the podcast series that we had initially in the season 1. So need to get him to show his mug on here and tell us some of his secrets, because
they're a rowdy bunch.
Oh yeah, he's got it figured out. Pretty much. Give him a couple years at a school, and he'll be in that NC every year, just like old Jason Freeman.
That's what we all went together in Dobie. We're in a Conference USA in Dobie together, and he's already waxing us there. He almost beat Seabreak, and this is only our second season. He's in his second season with Texas Christian, and he took Seabreak into overtime in a bowl game. I was like, "Jeez, my Christmas!"
Man.
I'm like, my first season I went 7-7, was ecstatic, and then this second season I think I won 10 games, but 5 of them were out of conference sims, so
right.
Nothing huge happened. It just was doing it to get my win total up. But he's
that coaching resume.
I don't know how he does it. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to text him here a little bit and tell him he's going to start mentoring me, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, and you can see it throughout the world when a particular coach is having success. Within 3 or 4 years, there's no doubt they've got something figured out that the majority of us here do not have figured out. Before you came on, I was talking briefly about the November-December patch that Adam had posted information about on the forum regarding the impact it's going to have on the elite setup, regarding what it's going to take to get an elite job, as well as, or more importantly, what it's going to take to stay there. And, I voiced my opinion in that I think it's a great first step. It's something that can be fine-tuned later on and adjusted and tweaked, if you will, in order to satisfy the masses and be a productive change for GD. What are your thoughts on that post that he made?
Well, seeing as how I just got an elite, I figure this is probably just to get me out of the elite.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody's picking on me. I just finally got an elite, so now let's change all the dynamics and make sure that he loses his job as quickly as possible. So, but no, I don't mind it. This being, like I said, I'm not a great coach. With getting Ohio State, and now that I've been at an elite and seen, it's not quite as great as what I expected it to be. I thought, once I got on recruit, everybody else was going to say, oh, hell, I give up. It's not been that way with me. But, of course, I figured that in my first season without having bowl money and, everybody knew kind of what you had and everything like that. But at least in the world I'm in, a lot of them don't roll over for the elites. But the other thing is, I think the Big Ten has it a little bit tougher. So that's, my problem. There's been a lot of, in the forums as well about elites not playing elites and all that kind of stuff. But just like in the Big Ten, they have it a little tougher because you got, Penn State, you've got Michigan, you've got Ohio State, you've got Notre Dame. So we're playing each other whether they're like it or not. So if then, they're saying we should play even more elites, then I'm like, like USC, there's only one elite in the Pac-10. So, yeah, I mean, should he play more? Probably. But then that's why I say I still schedule one. I played USC. I've played him, I think, every season I've been there. And he actually, I think he won it this season. I think he won the championship. But it's harder I think for the Big Ten guys because they have to play each other regardless. They might have a season where they don't have to play as many, but it's definitely tougher on them with having all the elites that are in there. And then if you have a good coach at Wisconsin, Minnesota, or there's in Leahy, Iowa's got a great coach. Matter of fact, he's beat me the last 2 seasons, I think. I mean, that's not really saying a lot for me though, but I can see, them wanting to be held to a higher standard and all that, but at the same time, it's kind of a touch and go thing. I mean, people have tried, it's so hard to get one of these jobs anyway,
right?
Because people don't leave them if they are there. Exactly. So, I mean, it's I don't know. It's just a touchy situation. They're acting like, if you don't win a, major championship, if you don't win a national championship within 4 seasons of being there, I'm like, well, how in the world, like I said, somebody in the Big Ten, that means we just got to take turns, otherwise one of us is going to lose a job every 4 seasons or something, and it's a fine line. Like I said, I think the stuff he's got in there right now isn't really going to make too much of a difference. I don't think there's any elite that's tanking that bad that they're going to get fired over what changes he's made to this point. But like I said, it could use some fine tuning. And I mean, is it only elites that should be held to that? I mean, should anybody else be? I still am a proponent. I'd like to see a floating elite thing. I'd like to. I would, if somebody can build Louisville up into a contender every year and make them to where they're an elite, I think that's great to me. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think there should be some movement within the elites. And as I was talking about before you came on, that would drive some attention to various worlds, because who's to say that 14 is a hard set number? There could be some schools that tank, and lo and behold, this year you've only got 6 that would be considered elite. Or on the flip side, you've got some really good coaches at really good schools, and now you've got 20 elites. And that part of it is interesting. And that also would have a bearing on where coaches go when they try to join different worlds. Do you want to go to a world where there are currently just 6 elites, or do you want to go to one where there's 20, knowing that there's a good chance that a coach is going to get fired and that school is still going to be elite at least for another year or two, and you can give it a try? I like the fact that the ability to get an elite job is not going to be as hard, but the ability to maintain that elite job is going to be harder. And I think that is a little more realistic in aspect of how it is in the real world.
Yeah.
You can get coaches that get good jobs, but then for whatever reason, Chad Morris don't get it done, and they're gone. And there's got to be a way to have this tweaked. And like I said, it's going to take many months, real world months, to run a couple cycles through the system to see how it actually shakes out and how it shapes up, because it's going to take input from the development team and Adam and his folks. They're going to have to go in and tweak the criteria or the cutoff for how you get a school or how you stay at a school. The one part of that thread, there was a post that I really liked, and I'm sure you will like it as well. And that was the part or the post where the individual said one of the prerequisites to qualify for an elite is to be a current active coach in that world. And I wholeheartedly agree. We had the people hiding behind the tree and popping in when the opportunity presented itself. Hell, I've done it. When the opportunity presented itself and take over an elite. And I did it because I had too many schools, too many worlds that were active, and I didn't want to coach a non-Power 5 conference team. And my resume was good enough to get an elite, but there weren't any available. So I said, I'm just dropping this world, focusing on the others. And who knows how many of us have done that. But even though I did that, I'm a proponent for one of the prerequisites being an active coach in that world in order to qualify for that elite. And I'm pretty sure you feel that way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've said it for quite some time. I mean, there's nothing more aggravating than, you get a good record going, and then, next thing you know, boom, a coach that's been gone for 10, 15 seasons jumps in and takes right back over. They was at a different elite before, and it just seems like the same coaches end up bouncing around to to just different elites, and that's what they're waiting for, is something to open up. Or you got really good coaches that, will take up, just like Ebel 331, he took Purdue up and won a national championship with Purdue. Yeah. Proves it can be done. It can be done. That's impressive to me. I mean, I hated it because he beat my team, but and that's what I say. I mean, if they can do that, and you can make, why not make Purdue into a powerhouse?
Yeah, exactly.
If but these guys know that, if they get out, then when he's on top, he's got a great record. He won a national championship, and then he can go sit out until an elite comes available. And then somebody else, say, somebody brought Boston College up and did great or won a national championship. And so they think they've got a front row at it. And then next thing you know, boop, somebody else pops right back in front of them. And so, and I'll be honest, there's no way in God's creation I should have got the Ohio State job. I jumped up from 1AA and got that job. There is no way that should happen. No way. Yeah. Anybody that's halfway decent at any of the Power 5 conferences should have got the job before me.
Didn't you have some national championships on that resume, though?
I had 3 in a row, yeah.
Yeah, and that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
in that regard. I mean, I think you deserved it. Just by the fact that you had 3 national championships recent on your resume. That's the kind of stuff that teams are looking for. Now, as far as, a team that's an elite that's won 4 or 5 national championships in a row, and then the coach leaves and they drop down and pick up a coach from D1A or D1AA that's had 2 or 3 national championships. The same could be said there too. It doesn't just matter what level of elite you're looking at. If you've got the qualifications, pat yourself on the back. You deserved it. And Joseph has mentioned in the chat, we were talking about the activeness of the coaches in order to get a job. He says active within the past 2 or 3 seasons. In real life, a coach may take a year off and then accept a great job. The Urban Meyer coaching plan. You take a year or 2 off and go somewhere else, and boom, you get hired. You're waiting for the right position to come along, and that's a good point. That's a good, valid point. But then again, we're right back.
You're skipping out on recruiting infractions.
Yeah, yeah, because they don't follow you, and I think they should.
Yeah, evidently, they don't.
They hit your reputation, and that's about it. But you're eligible to play bowl games or whatever the case may be, and it's rare that you can get a recruiting violation and be able to move up to the next level. You've got to be really solid beforehand. But anyway, gentlemen, look, the folks that are tuning in and contributed on the board, Jordan did as well, talking about when we were talking about the number of human coaches in a world, how it affects the undecideds versus the Sims. He basically mirrored what I was saying. So I appreciate all those guys tuning in and listening. Definitely encourage you to pop on the show, join us live. We need to increase the visual satisfaction of the viewers. You got my ugly mug on here. There could be some better looking people come on here than me. So Daryl's doing his best, and
yeah.
We enjoy having those guys that are on here periodically come on as well, but definitely encourage a lot of the newcomers to come on. And I know one of my conference mates, he's thinking about coming on. And again, it doesn't take any special equipment. You don't have to have an account, any of that. We've, thanks to Bob Hazelwood, he suggested I use this platform, and it's been very productive, very beneficial, and it's very easy to use. You simply click that link in the very first post on that pinned TTATO thread, and you pop into the room, you assign yourself a name, and we bring you from backstage onto the live screen, and you can interact. You can do it from a mobile device, a tablet. I believe it works on both Mac and PC. So it's easy. There's no excuses. Come join us sometime. Daryl, thanks for being on, brother. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Good luck to you in your pursuit on the next national championship.
Yeah, we're turning away.
Yeah, I'll be sure to prepare for another ass kicking by you. So.
Yeah.
Folks, appreciate everybody that's tuned in, everybody that's watching. Let's get ready for a weekend and remember what this particular 3-day weekend is about as we honor those fallen. Thanks again, everybody. Until next time, I'm your host, Majique, and this has been another episode of This, That, and the Other.